What's going on, everybody? This is Jon Kushin. Welcome to After Further Review. I'm your host, Jon Kushin. Once again, After Further Review. No Matty Q this week. Different format. Just going to be me. No NFL this week. Just going to be talking NBA. I just want to get right into it. The All-Star teams have been announced. They announced the captains and starters first, and then they announced the reserves, of course. Captains from the East and West, LeBron James and Kevin Durant. It's fan voting. I see no fault. That's who I would have voted myself. And then the starters. So in the East, you have Kevin Durant, the captain, Kyrie Irving and Bradley Beal in the backcourt. And then at KD at the small forward, Giannis at the power forward, and Joel Embiid at the 5. The forwards are great. Center's great. Embiid's great. Giannis, whatever. That's fine. For me, Bradley Beal has been phenomenal, okay? He's leading the league in points per game. However, James Harden is a bad man, okay? He's been the best player in the league this so far this year. And I could listen to a case for Embiid averaging 30 points a game. I could listen to a case for Jokic, and but for me, James Harden, what he's done without Kevin Durant, what he's done for this Nets team, triple-double machine. It's got to be James Harden is the best player in the league right now this year, and I think it's criminal that he's not in the starting lineup. Love the Kyrie Irving pick. And no shade to Bradley Beal because he's been balling, but James Harden deserves that starting position, especially when Bradley Beal's team was 14th when the voting got finalized. Now they're winning games now, 12 and 18, but James Harden's team is 22 and 12. So especially when it's just points per game is what's putting him in that starting position. I think that James Harden deserved it, but fan votes. So in the West, obviously you have LeBron at the captain. And then in the guards, you have Steph Curry and Luka Doncic. No Damian Lillard. Obvious. Even Luka himself said it that Damian Lillard deserved the spot. I would agree. Luka playing phenomenal. I would say he's a lower class MVP candidate. I would say he would be higher if his team wasn't in 10th place. But he's an all-star. But Damian Lillard definitely deserved that starting spot, especially since his team is in 5th. But Steph Curry deserves it. Obviously, been balling this year. Jokic at the 5. One of the best players in the association this year, and Kawhi at the 4, or LeBron at the 4, whatever way you put it. LeBron captain deserves it. He's the MVP right now for me. But Kawhi, I don't really see fault with that. He's kind of just there every year. Anthony Davis leads off the reserves, who is injured, so he will be replaced with Domantas Sabonis, who got snubbed. Talk about that because Anthony Davis is the for the reserves. Anthony Davis, Paul George, Rudy Gobert, Donovan Mitchell, Damian Lillard, Chris Paul, Zion Williamson, and Devin Booker. Devin Booker obviously replacing Anthony Davis. He did get snubbed though he's a replacement, which I think is horrible. Devin Booker, his team's in 4th place. Monty Williams has done a great job with the team, but Devin Booker, I like the Chris Paul pick. If I had to pick one, Chris Paul's a legend. If I had to pick one, I'm going Devin Booker. He's the best player on that team right now. Obviously, Chris Paul's had a better career. I like Chris Paul. He's been balling this season. I think you could put 2 in there. If I had to pick one, I would go Devin Booker. I don't know what the coaches who are voting are doing. But Zion's an all-star now over Ja Morant, who missed some time, even though Ja was the rookie of the year. And I like that. I mean, I like Zion. You know, he's been going off this year. Problem is his team's 11th in the West. but they've had some close games. They're right there. I do think they will make the playoffs this year. So I'm not too. I think he would be one of the guys you could say you could replace, but I like that pick. I'm not a big fan of Rudy Gobert in the All Star for the All Star team again because uh, he's a good player, but I just think Devin Booker is way more qualified than him. And other than that, I mean, no real complaints there. But for the East, I for the reserves, Jason Tatum and Jalen Brown, the Celtics duo, James Harden, Zach LaVine, Julius Randle, Ben Simmons, Nikola Vucevic, and Domantas Sabonis, obviously replacing Kevin Durant, who will sit out through the All-Star break. He's the captain. I believe he will remain the captain and draft the team, but he will not participate. He will sit through it. And Domantas Sabonis did not make the All-Star team originally, which is, in my mind, that is unbelievable. That's the worst snub this year. I don't think, and obviously, if you have snubs, you have to replace someone. So Ben Simmons, he's a good player. His team's first in the East. Um, he's his stats actually have not been that great. Good defensive player. He might be a subtle defensive player of the year candidate, but he does not deserve that All-Star bid over Domantas Sabonis. It's the big market teams get more favored, especially in All-Star voting. Although Domantas Sabonis is on the team now, replacing Kevin Durant, but I would still replace Ben Simmons with Trae Young or even Fred VanVleet because they have both been balling, and that's the trouble. I mean, I say they should increase the All-Star teams going forward because there's just so many good players in the league. But Ben Simmons, I don't think he deserves to be an All-Star this year. I'm he's growing on me. Haven't been a big fan, but I think he's a jump shot away from being a complete superstar. I think he's a jump shot away from averaging 25, 10, and 8. Uh, Especially since that expands his game and makes it easier for him to score if he has that weapon. Same with Giannis. He is a jump shot away from being the best player, most dominant player in the league, maybe of all time. 6'11", 7 foot, just a ripped specimen who can do everything. He can score at will. And if he had that jump shot, it would be even easier. He might average 35 a game. The Bucks are in third, Sixers in first, Nets are in second. The Nets have won 8 straight games, 7 of those without arguably their best player, Kevin Durant. Obviously, I'm a big Nets fan, like the trio, like Joe Harris, like Luau Cabarro. I'm a DeAndre Jordan fan too. But the Nets have been balling. James Harden, I think that is the reason why he's been the best player in the association, because what he can do even without having Kevin Durant there. Kyrie Irving balling, proving everybody wrong. They're half a game back from first place. But yeah, 8 straight. They blew out the Lakers, like I said, a week ago. And I know AD was out, but also KD was out, and you could make a case that KD would actually have a bigger impact than Anthony Davis would. But that is the go through the standings real quick. 76ers, I mentioned, Nets and Bucks, top 3. Then you have the Pacers, Raptors, Knicks in 6, surprising many people. Bulls in 7, Hornets in 8, also a surprise if you said that at the start of the year. Celtics in 9, maybe the biggest shock of the year, and I will talk about that. The Heat are in the 10th spot, another shocker. Those are the 2 teams that were in the Eastern Conference Finals last year in 9 and 10. The Hawks in 11, Wizards in 12, Magic 13th, Cavaliers 14th, and the Pistons with 9 wins and 23 losses are the worst team in the East. In the West, the Jazz are in first. Clippers passed the Lakers, half a game ahead. Clippers are in second, Lakers are in third. Jazz have been balling. They're 9 and 10 in their last 10 games, or 9 and 1 in their last 10 games. Just dominating on all cylinders. Donovan Mitchell's a superstar, but he's not like a dominant superstar. It's just their team has so much depth, great defense. and they're winning. And now the question is, do I think they will go far in the playoffs, or can they beat the Clippers or Lakers? Is what it's going to come down to. And my answer is no. I don't think that this team in the playoffs, they haven't proved to me. They just beat down the Lakers. Obviously, no AD. They haven't proved to me that they can handle playoff LeBron, Anthony Davis if he comes back healthy, uh, or Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. I know the playoffs didn't work out last year and they lost to Denver, but I'm going. I'm taking the Lakers and Clippers. I might even take the Suns over the Jazz because Monty Williams, like I said before, great job with the team. Devin Booker and Chris Paul. Aiton's been improving. Then you have the Trailblazers in fifth, Spurs in sixth, Warriors seventh, Nuggets fall to 8, 5-5 in their last 10 games. Lakers also have lost 4 straight. I didn't mention that. Kind of, it's the time of the year when LeBron loses 3 or 4 games in a row, 5 games in a row, and everyone asks if he's washed, if he can handle it, if he's too old. It's an annual thing. Grizzlies just out of the playoff picture in 9th, 1 game back. Mavericks in 10th, and that's what's holding Luka back, like I mentioned earlier. Pelicans in 11th place, Thunder 12th, Kings 13th, Rockets in 14th. Obviously, you see how valuable James Harden is. And the worst team in the association, the Minnesota Timberwolves. So Timberwolves have just not been working out because that's a good team. That is a good team. That in my mind, that team at the beginning of the year, they were probably a playoff team. D'Angelo Russell, Karl Anthony Towns, now Anthony Edwards, who's been on a tear recently. And I don't know, it's surprising that they only have 7 wins. Just fired their coach. But yeah, LeBron. Speaking of going back to the Lakers and their 4 straight losses, LeBron James has he was at like 43rd in minutes in the first 2 months of the league, December and January. In February, he's second in minutes played. Seen a 5 minutes per game increase in his minutes. Played 42 minutes the other night. And it's he's having to do so much more without Anthony Davis, and I think that's a big notable thing to know. Wizards obviously winning games now, trying to do something with the tandem of Beal and Westbrook. Westbrook's been getting triple doubles. I think he leads the league in triple doubles right now. But I want to talk about the Celtics because that's the big thing for me. The Celtics, 15-17, 2 games behind 500, and this team, they're in 9th place, not even in the playoff picture, behind by half a game. Something is not working there. Now you hear the question: is it Brad Stevens? Does he need to be on the hot seat? And a lot of Boston fans are saying he needs to be fired. A lot of experts are saying he needs to be fired. Danny Ainge, people are blaming Danny Ainge. No one's blaming Jason Tatum. And I don't blame them because he's averaging the most points he's ever averaged in his career. His assist numbers are up. He's balling. Jaylen Brown is an all-star. He's been balling, especially when Tatum was out. And so it's obviously not them. I think Kemba Walker is kind of a big bad play this year. He's been injured. Marcus Smart's been hurt. Kemba Walker needs to be better. Okay, I don't. If it's for the injury, I excuse it. But he just needs to. If he's hurt, he should rest so he can get back to full. Even with him full, I do not see this team coming out of the East. I would trade Kemba Walker for a big man. Brad Stevens has proven year in and year out he is the best, one of the youngest, most talented coaches in the league. Obviously a basketball genius, X's and O's guy. Love that. Boston, we'll see what he does with Isaiah Thomas, with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Danny Ainge has been a fantastic executive. Some questionable moves. He passed up on James Harden earlier in the year for Jaylen Brown and Marcus Smart. And I can understand that because obviously your team went to the Eastern Conference Finals last year. And amid the time of the Harden trade, people were questioning how good of a locker room presence he is, when obviously he's proved that he is not a cancer, like most people were saying. But yeah, Jaylen Brown's a great player, and he's an all-star, and Marcus Smart's the most valuable player, one of the most valuable players to this Boston team, and him being out does hurt the team. However, I think they need a big man. They struggled last year. The reason they lost to the Heat in the playoffs was because they did not have a big man. Bam Adebayo just had his way with Daniel Tice and Robert Williams, and Robert Williams has been great. I think trading Kemba Walker for Andre Drummond, who's sitting out now, the Cavs are keeping him um, out of their rotation until they either trade or buy him out. If they buy him out, I think he was interested in Brooklyn, the Celtics, obviously some other places. I think both the Brooklyn Nets and the Boston Celtics could use him, especially, well, both of them could. But the Celtics in being specific with the Celtics, if they trade Kemba, or better, just sign Andre Drummond if he gets bought out. If they trade Kemba for any compatible big man in the offense who Brad Stevens can use to rebound, they fell apart last year in the playoffs against the Heat because they got out rebounded. And what did they do in the offseason? They picked up Tristan Thompson, who's aging and regressing. And we've seen he hasn't been bad this year, but he is not what the Celtics needed. He would be reliable off the bench behind a better big man. I think trading Kemba also opens up way more opportunities in the starting lineup. For you could have Marcus Smart run the 1, Brown and Tatum at the 2 and 3, Robert Williams at the 4, and then the big man you get at the 5. You could have Pritchard and Smart in the backcourt, or I don't really like Teague in the starting lineup. I think Pritchard's better, younger. I think Pritchard and Smart. You could have Tatum at the 4, Brown at the 3, and then the big man. I think there's just so many more things you could do and be such a complete team. I think if they get a big man, with or without Kemba Walker, this team is going to be right there with the Nets in the Eastern Conference Finals if they don't play them before. I think if they play Philly, I think it's a 4 or 5 game win for the Celtics, even if they don't have a big man, because we saw last year the same thing. I think there's no doubt the Celtics are making the playoffs, because obviously this is just a little mud slide in the mud for them. 3-7 in their last 10 games, 3 straight losses. But I'm taking the Celtics any day over the Sixers. Sixers just cannot handle the Boston Celtics. But the Nets are coming out of the East, as far as I'm concerned, unless the Celtics can pick up Andre Drummond or another big man and swipe him from the Nets. If the Nets get a big man like Andre Drummond, then it's completely over. But I am still taking, even if the Celtics get a big, I think it could be a 6-game series with the Nets, but I'm taking the Nets because they're obviously my favorite to win the championship. They have been since the Harden trade, and they've proved that point even further. I'm taking the Nets out of the East still. But Brad Stevens being on the hot seat is utterly ridiculous. Danny Ainge, the Paul Pierce trade was questioned in its time. People were saying, how can you trade Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett for that? And that turned out to be young guys, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum. They turned the first pick into Jason Tatum and another pick from from Philadelphia. He's just been a fantastic GM. Isaiah Thomas for Kyrie Irving. Obviously, Isaiah Thomas was great. Boston hero. And even though Kyrie Irving didn't work out, Isaiah Thomas has never been the same. He's been hurt. His Kyrie Irving was way better. And I think that there were just too many issues. Kyrie Irving, if he was on this team right now over Kemba Walker, then the Celtics would be winning the championship, because Kyrie wouldn't be on the Nets. The Celtics would be winning the championship. I think if the Nets come out of the East, then they will win the championship, unless Anthony Davis is fully 100% healthy. But even then, I'm probably still taking the Nets. We'll have to see at the time. If the Celtics somehow come out of the East, I don't think the Sixers are coming out of the East. But if the Celtics lose to anyone other than the Nets, then their season is a fail. Because we can expect them to lose to the Nets, but anyone else, I would expect them to lose to the Celtics personally. A lot of people wouldn't, but if the not the Nets come out, if the Celtics or the Sixers come out of the East, if it's the I think the Lakers will have the edge. Celtics are just very young. I think their time will be maybe next year, but I think give them a year or two and they will be in the championship, especially with Harden and Durant getting older. Kyrie Irving's going to reach 30 pretty soon. So I think the Nets will have 1 or 2 years of dominance and then they will age, try and rebuild. But that trade, anyone who says that Harden trade was not worth it is obviously wrong. I said it in the time. They're trading their future, which is a long shot to be a championship team with all those draft picks for a ring or two right now. And that's a great trade. And I said it at the time. But the Nets are obviously balling. Celtics not balling, but they will turn it around. I think they can get the 5 seed. I think they might be able to get the 4 seed. Only 2 games back from the 4 or 1 game back from the 4 seed. It's just there's so many teams in that contention right now. It's Sixers with 22 wins, Nets with 22 wins, Bucks with 20 wins, and then there's a drop off 3.5 games back. Pacers 15 wins. They're 15-15. The Celtics are in 9th, 15-17. 2 more games played. So the Celtics could get the 4 seed easily, and I think that they will. Which would mean that they're playing, I don't know, the Raptors, the Knicks in the first round, which will be a win for the Celtics, who will then go on to face, if the Sixers are in first or the Nets are in first, they'll play one of those two. I don't think the Bucks will finish in first. If it's the Nets, then that's the real challenge. There's the best series in the Eastern Conference, and I think the Nets have the advantage at the moment. If it's the Sixers, then the Celtics will win that too, and then play the Nets. But they're going to have to face off against the Nets, and the Nets won't lose to anybody. The only team that might contend with them is the Celtics if they get a big man, or the Lakers if Anthony Davis is healthy. But yeah, that's all I wanted to say about Brad Stevens. He's a genius. He should be the head coach for Boston for at least 20 years. And my early prediction for next year is that Jason Tatum is going to be the MVP. Boston Celtics are going to win 56 games and be the 1 seed in the East and compete for a championship if the Nets aren't still balling like they are right now. But Jason Tatum, I think he's going to be an MVP next year if it's not Luka Doncic, because I think he's the only competition for him next year. If LeBron gets one this year, no matter how he does next year, they won't give it to him. They just, for whatever reason, they don't like repeating too many times the MVP, because other than if it wasn't like that, Tom Brady and LeBron James would win the MVPs every year. But I think Tatum's an early candidate for the next year's MVP. I think he'll average 28, 9, and 5. And so yeah, that's pretty much it for After Further Review as of right now. Today we have, for games, we have Pacers and Celtics, Rockets and Raptors, Kings and Pistons, Suns and Bulls, Clippers and Grizzlies, Jazz and Heat, Hawks and Thunder, Lakers and Trailblazers, and Hornets and Warriors. So my picks for today's games, I'll wrap it up with that. Go with the Celtics against the Pacers. I'm taking the Celtics, despite the Pacers being 4th. I think this will be the game that Tatum turns it around. Rockets and Raptors, or Tatum turns it around for the Celtics, not for him, because he's been great. Rockets and Raptors, I'm taking the Rockets. The Raptors. I'm taking the Raptors because Fred VanVleet. They don't have a lot of their coaching staff, their protocols. Don't have Pascal Siakam, but I'm still taking Fred VanVleet. Kings and Pistons, I got to go with, these are 2 bad teams. Kings have lost 9 straight, I think. I'm going the Kings, though, because the Pistons are bad, too. Suns and Bulls, that's close, but I'm going Phoenix. Clippers, Grizzlies, got to go Clippers, of course. Jazz and Heat, I'm going with the Heat over the Jazz. I know that's shocking because the Jazz are on fire, but Jimmy Butler has been a bucket lately. Thunder and Hawks, got to go with the Atlanta Hawks. Trailblazers, Lakers, I'm taking the Lakers against the Trailblazers, and I'm going with the Hornets over the Warriors for the last game. So that's going to wrap it up from After Further Review. This was a little different, doing a picture video No Matt this week, just me talking. Uh, and we will probably see you next week. Matt's going to be here, and we're going to talk more NFL. We're going to talk more NBA and MLB. Um, get all the latest news to you. So that's it for After Further Review. I'm John. Thanks for watching.